What's up guys, my name is Caleb, and in today's video I'm going to tell you how to make 2025 the best year of your life. Now ultimately it's going to come down to three things. It's going to take action, clarity, and self-compassion. Now with 2024 coming to a close, coming up on the start of 2025, I just wanted to share 10 actionable steps with you to make next year an exceptional one. So let's get right into it. First off, it is insanely cold right now, so I'm going to put on a jacket. And for those of you who want to know, I'm here to see the sunrise at the Rowena Crest viewpoint, just outside of the Dalles, Oregon. Should be seeing the sun pop above the horizon in about 10 minutes here. Okay, so step one is going to be to set a vision and define your priorities. Now, what I mean by this is take a look at your life now and the different areas that you want to put the most work into and compare that to where you would like to be at the end of next year or a year from now. What I would do is pick 3 key areas for you to work on, whether this be your career, your personal finance. This could be things like friendships, relationships, different hobbies, different things that you're doing on the side, and try to really visualize like where your life will be in a year if you do focus on these things and what that will actually look like. Before going into next year, it's really important that you have a very clear vision and that you have defined your priorities. That way you can stay focused and you know exactly what you're headed towards. Oh, and there we go, just like that, the sun decided to pop up. So now that you've determined the 3 major areas that you would like to focus on for 2025, it's important for you to next set goals for yourself and actually define ways that you can achieve those in a measurable way. And I actually found a really cool acronym the other day called SMART goals. And what SMART stands for is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So instead of things like, oh, I want to make more money by the end of the year, you should try and define it a little more than that and be like, I want to make X amount of money by the end of the year or X amount of money per month doing this specific thing, and really dial in what those will look like and try to make the goals measurable. That way you can actually see if you're headed towards them. And it's important for your goals to be measurable, because without being able to measure progress, then you have no driving factor or motivating factor helping you achieve those goals and kind of like stay in the game. You also want to keep your goals actually achievable and realistic, because if your goals are too out there, then it's going to be really difficult to break those things down into smaller steps. And that brings me to the next point, which is that not only should you have these bigger overarching long-term goals, but you should break these bigger goals into smaller goals and smaller steps that you can take, things that you can achieve on a semi-weekly basis or a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. And the whole purpose of these goals is basically so you can create a framework for your game plan going into next year. So that was step 2. Step 3 is going to be to create an action plan with checkpoints. So like I said, you want to take these bigger overarching goals and break them down into quarterly, monthly, or weekly goals. And you should schedule checkpoints for yourself so you can measure your progress and check back in every so often and readjust your game plan in case you are not achieving these goals in a quick enough amount of time. And you want to rebalance things as necessary as you go along, because at the end of the day, if your goals are too difficult, it's just going to be a disappointment. And if your goals are too easy, then it's not really going to give you that greater sense of accomplishment when you actually achieve them. Now, I highly recommend using some sort of planner or maybe a journal. Like I have a personal bullet journal at home for this. And this is where you can write these goals down and measure them and measure your progress. And then every couple of weeks, check back in with yourself and ask yourself, are the things that I'm accomplishing actually leading towards that bigger goal still, or do I need to readjust and kind of reshape my perspective on this moving forward? Now, step 4 is to focus on habits over outcomes. And the reason why this is so important is because if you're only focused on the outcome, then you're not really focusing on like what matters as far as your path and the journey towards the outcome. And then on top of that, if you're only focused on the outcome, then when you do get that reward and hit that finish line, then you're gonna end up having this kind of sense of like what to do next. Whereas if you focus on these habits, then the skills and habits that you create throughout the year will roll over into the following years and will continue to benefit you later in life as well. And these habits should directly pertain to the bigger goals and the smaller goals that you've set for yourself. And I think that once again, these are some things that you can put in a journal or a planner and keep track of these habits that you're working on and make sure that you're having consistency and you're still showing up every day and actually trying to practice these new habits. So for example, if one of your goals relates to being maybe more productive or getting more things done related to your career path or something, one of your habits could be to wake up at 6 a.m. every day, or one of your habits could be to get 8 hours of sleep or go to bed by 10 p.m. or something like that. I personally used to do this with my bullet journal at home, and it actually helped a lot. And what I would do is I would take my calendar page, and on the right margin, I would have a column that would have every day of the month, and then I would have 7 different habits that I was tracking, and it would be even things like drinking a certain amount of water each day, having a certain amount of meals. I think I even had to do like 50 push-ups at one point on there. But the point is, focus on building better habits and having consistency with them, and don't be so focused on the finish line and the outcome. And also make sure you reward yourself for staying consistent with these habits and give yourself a pat on the back because you definitely earned it. Now, step 5 would be to find accountability. So when you're creating these goals and your habits for yourself, it doesn't mean anything if you're not checking back in with yourself every so often and actually holding yourself accountable. And one of the ways that you can hold yourself even more accountable is to find either an accountability partner, someone else who has similar goals to you and you guys can check up on each other every month or something, or find a friend or a family member that you can tell about your goals and the habits that you're trying to build. And then maybe every couple of weeks or once a month, you can talk to them for an hour or two and kind of talk about like the things you're learning, the things that you're excelling at, the things that you still need to work on. And that way you can stay motivated and stay driven, because if you end up, not doing anything or not making any progress towards your goals, and then your accountability partner hits you up and is like, hey, what have you done this month? And you say nothing, then it's gonna kind of make you feel guilty a little bit. And the guilt of wasting time at the end of the day is kind of gonna be the thing that motivates you to actually keep moving forward and keep making progress. And then once you build up enough momentum, it's going to feel a lot easier for you to stay consistent and to keep going. And another way that you can hold yourself accountable is actually by starting a YouTube channel or documenting it to some extent. So whether that be having journal entries every day or every week, talking about everything that you've done, what you're learning, or you can create YouTube videos, and if you don't want to make them public, then you can always just hold them on your personal phone or rewatch them later. But putting them on the internet helps hold you accountable because now you are in the spotlight of everybody else. And when you're in the spotlight of everybody else, not only will it kind of light a fire under you to keep the ball rolling, but you can also crowdsource motivation. Now, step 6 would be to invest in new skills and personal growth. So I think that you should take these bigger goals that you have for the year and figure out for each one, what are a couple of different new skills that I can learn or improve that will directly pertain to these goals that you have. So for example, if you're trying to get into a more advanced career job or a different field, then 2 of your skills could be getting better at interviewing and getting better at building resumes. When it comes to building these new skills, I think that you should be also incorporating better habits with these and working on them on a regular basis. And you can also keep track of these things in the journal too. And when it comes to learning new skills, sometimes it can be difficult for you to find the right resources to learn and get correct information. And a couple of good ways that you can go about doing this is, one, the internet, and YouTube especially. You can almost learn anything on there. And then the next thing that you can try out is courses. There's websites like Coursera or people who even sell courses on YouTube for everything under the sun, and this is a great way to kind of get some skin in the game. And the last way is to have a good mentor that is either already successful in the field that you're trying to get into, or someone who at least has the knowledge and can help you out. All right, step 7 would be to prioritize your health and well-being. And this can come in a couple of different ways. The first one is you want to get exercise 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day is kind of the standard goal. And the reason why this is important is because, your body is almost like a vehicle and you need to keep your body warmed up. So if you're someone who is super lazy, never exercises, lays in bed a lot, scrolls through Instagram and TikTok, this one might be a little bit more difficult for you to get on board with, but it's super important because it just keeps your body in motion, and having exercise on a regular basis can have a huge impact on your productivity and your mental health. And you don't have to go crazy overboard with the exercise. It can be as simple as doing yoga, doing some squats in your living room. It could be, rock climbing or skateboarding. You don't have to overcomplicate this one, but at the very least, just get out of bed and stretch your body out. Now, the second part of this is going to be your mental health. I think that your self-talk is super important, and you need to exercise your brain just as much as you exercise your body. So that can come in a few different forms. You could either read more books, educate yourself on stuff more often, get into things like meditation, and make sure you are talking to yourself the way that you would talk to somebody you love. At the end of the day, we're our own biggest critics most of the time, and this can definitely be a huge downfall when it comes to achieving things and being productive. Now, the final aspect of this is going to be getting a regular sleep schedule. I think a lot of people don't really understand how important sleep is for your health long term, and also how important it is to sleep during the same times every day. Now, if you're someone who has a really hard time with this, and you sleep kind of, whenever you're tired, and you're going to sleep at a different time every day, and you're having trouble waking up in the morning, honestly, the biggest reason why this is, other than things like diet, is the fact that you are not having a consistent sleep schedule. So I think that no matter what your goals are for next year, I think the biggest 3 things that will impact your productivity and your energy levels, your stress management, and your mental self-talk are going to be exercise, diet like I just mentioned, and then getting a regular sleep schedule. By the way, we are now at Rocky Butte. This is on the Washington side of the Columbia River. And we are about to hike to the top of that cliff right there. We're not quite at the top yet. It's just about another 100 feet that way, but I figured I would take you to step number 8 now. Had to take my jacket off because this direct sunlight is starting to get a little hot after this hike I just did. But step number 8 is to create a balanced routine and celebrate your wins. So like I said with some of the other things, it's important that you find balance in your life between your work and your sleep, or your work and your downtime, or your work and your family and things like that. Because the last thing that you want to happen in 2025 is for you to get burnt out. Now, I know this is a huge problem for my generation especially, as we seem to be so burnt out on going to work all the time, having to work so hard for such little pay. It seems like all of our dreams are constantly out of reach. The housing market is completely screwed right now. And so the least that you could do is give yourself some grace and remember that, there is a time for having fun, there's a time for relaxing, and there's a time for working hard. I also think it's super crucial that you start celebrating your smaller victories. Like, for example, this video, I normally wouldn't feel satisfied until this video is fully done and on the internet, but it is important to break those things down into smaller steps and celebrate those small victories independently. So for example, right now, once I get this filming done, then I'll reward myself by having some downtime for the rest of the day. And then when I get done editing, I'll be able to reward myself with some more downtime again. And so each step of the process, I'm getting like a little victory, and I'm making sure to consciously recognize that I'm actually making progress and getting things done. Because even though the project isn't fully completed, I'm getting these different steps executed and out of the way, and those things are just as important as the finish line. Something else worth mentioning is not only should you make a plan and execute your goals according to a step-by-step process, but I think it's also equally as important to plan your downtime. So if you want to spend a certain part of the day allocated towards working, then I think you should also allocate a certain part of the day that is just for relaxing and doing absolutely nothing that relates to the actual work. Because the whole point of the downtime is to get your mind kind of like out of the game for a little bit so you can reflect and replenish your energy. And if you spend all your downtime just stressing and worried about the next steps of the process, then it's not really downtime, is it? So take that with a grain of salt. Like I said, just find balance and reward yourself for the small victories. All right, we are officially at the top of Rocky Butte right now. If you look way over there, you can see my car in the parking lot. Over there is Mount Hood, off to the west. We've got the Columbia River right in front of us here. All right, step 9 is going to be to adapt and reflect on a regular basis. So there's going to always be obstacles when you're going and achieving goals, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of different hurdles and obstacles when it comes to next year. And it's important to recognize that these things are a part of the process just as much as everything else, and to not let them bog you down too much. Because at the end of the day, every single obstacle is a blessing in disguise and has something that you can learn from it. And if you're chipping away at a certain task and you just kind of feel like nothing is working, it's totally okay for you to take a step back and reflect on what's working and what isn't, and readjust your compass and continue sailing. Before you get started every day or before you go to bed at night, take a step back and look at what you've been working on and try to see if there's anything else that you can do to optimize it further. Because it's one thing to work super hard, but if you can work super smart, then in some cases you can only do 1/10 of the work to get the same goals. All right, now we're on to the 10th and final step, and that is to embrace positivity and have gratitude. It is crucial that you approach your goals as optimistically as you possibly can, because that inner voice inside your head is going to be the filter for which you see the world. And so if you're, only focused on the negative things, it's going to feel like you're only getting negative things. Whereas if you can focus more positively and optimistically on stuff, then any type of obstacle is going to become like almost an excitement in a way. I think if you want to take this a step further, something that you could do is begin or end your day by writing down just 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for. And this will kind of keep your head in the game of focusing on what's positive instead of focusing so much on the negative aspects or what's not working. And lastly, it's important to notice those small victories like I was talking about earlier, and trying to have the best positive self-talk that you can. Ultimately, you are just a person who is locked inside their own head constantly, and you can never really escape it. So you might as well make friends with it and try to get along with it as best you can. Now remember, like I said, 2025 being your best year yet is going to come down to clarity, action, and self-compassion more than anything else. So I hope this 10-step process gave you sort of a decent framework that you can work off of and get started and plan ahead when we're going into the new year. Once again, my name is Caleb. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure to check out my latest video in the top right corner and subscribe if you want more content just like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.